I was given this terrarium to transform as unfortunately all the plants inside had died. In this video I'll show you the process I used to transform it into a thriving forest ecosystem and the steps to take to prevent your terrarium from dying. To start off, I had to remove all of the dead moss and plants because they were completely bone dry and didn't have much hope of coming back to life. The Fittonia still had some life in it, but I had enough healthy Fittonia plants that I can take cuttings from them instead. I then tipped out the substrate as it wouldn't be of much use anymore. The plants before had sucked the nutrients out of it and it was stuck together with roots, which is going to make it hard to add new plants into it. Removing this will allow me to also change the drainage layer as all of the substrate had fallen down into it, rendering it pretty ineffective. I then washed it all out so that we could start from scratch on the build, also giving the glass a quick polish in the process. To start off, I replaced the drainage layer with Leaker, which is much lighter and a better medium for drainage than the pea gravel used before. I then added in a substrate barrier to prevent the substrate from falling down into the lecker, which is what happened to the previous drainage layer. Next I added my own substrate consisting of 2 parts cocoa coir, 1 part worm castings, 1 part sphagnum moss and 1 part lava rock. By combining these we create a substrate that is nutrient rich and well draining. This was then brushed towards the back to create a gradient that will enhance the depth of the build later on. Next up was the Hardscape, and for this I'm going to use a piece of driftwood in the centre to create a tree root like effect. I was going to add multiple pieces, but I decided to stick with just the one. I blended it into the substrate and then added some lava rock pieces into the back of the build. These will help fill out the background and will contrast nicely to the green moss. I'm using a range of different sizes and spreading them out at the back. It was now time to start planting. I'm going to start off with some moss to fill out the sides. I'm using a variety of different mosses to create a wild forest floor style. The first plant I'll be using is this Paulownia repens, which has beautiful leaves and almost never fails propagation. When planting, I like to start from the edges and work my way into the centre. I'm building up plants here along the edge as I'm going to put a sand path down the centre that weaves around the woods and eventually ends up making a mini beach at the front. Plants like this asparagus fern and parlour palm work well to fill out the back of the glass as they stretch up high with leaves that expand out. All these plants like this Fittonia have had success with rootless cuttings and they quickly form new roots under the humid tropical conditions. Adding a variety of mosses in between the plants will help blend them together and cover up the top of the substrate. I'm liking how this is going so far and I think it's time to start putting in the sand path down the centre. Using a funnel for the sand is a good idea as you can stop sand from falling on the leaves and going all over the moss. It helps to direct it in a steady flow so you can more precisely skate with it. I'm using sand to create a mini beach area at the front of the terrarium. You could just cover this area with moss and plants, but they may blot other plants in the background. I find the contrast of the yellow sand with the rest of the plants helps to make the terrarium look far better aesthetically. I've added some mini lava rocks to help blend the sand into the plants. I'm also going back along the sand edge with more moss and cuttings like Fittonia. Doing this will make the scape make more sense when looking at it and in turn make it more realistic. We're starting to get there now with the planting and I'm adding in lots of smaller cuttings to fill in any gaps and to add more detail to a few different areas. Something that I'm prone to is overplanting, as I always want to make complicated builds. However, sometimes keeping things simple can look better. For the final cuttings, I use this Ficus quercifolia, which I always add at the end to detail paths or hardscape. I love its mini ivy-like leaves that spread out and carpet over time. This is a plant that I'd 100% recommend picking up, although it's sold out quite a lot due to its popularity. In the beach area, I'm going to press down some moss into the sand to finish off this area to see a tiny bit of last detail. I'm also going to top up the sand on the path as it was starting to disappear under all the plants. And of course, I'll top this with more lava rock. It's now time to water down the build. It's very important not to overwater as this is a common mistake made by beginners. However, the lid in this terrarium is not very tight, so this one will likely need watering every month or so. This is likely why it dried out and died before. It's best to water on how dry the substrate is rather than to a time schedule, as how much water they need can fluctuate over time. I'm also adding springtails to stop any mold growing on the driftwood and also to break down dead plants. I'm super happy with how this turned out, and it's night and day from how it looked before. I'm hoping this will continue to thrive for its owner, and hopefully it won't end up in the same fate as the last one. However, you can't make a bunch of terrariums unless you have a place to store your tropical plants, so click on this video next to learn how to make a propagation box that will house all of your terrarium plants, allowing you to take cuttings whenever you want for your builds.